Hey there, welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today I am thrilled to have with me Dr. Bradley Ekwerekwu. Nice to have you here on the
Hi.
Voice of Influence podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see you again and talk with you again. I know the first time that we got together, we had great conversation. So excited to continue that with you today.
Yeah. Dr. Ekwerekwu is the CEO of Learning Community of Douglas and Sarpy counties currently. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And he was just recently on a panel discussion that we hosted for um, uh, the Army Corps of Engineers in Omaha, Nebraska. And so I was thrilled to get to meet you, to know you, mutual colleague, I guess. Bobby Brumfield is who connected us. So yeah, it's really good to now have you here on the Voice of Influence on the podcast so that we can kind of dig in a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I obviously know Bobby is awesome. And when he calls and says, "I need you to come on," that's the open invitation to come and do something really cool. And so the Army Corps of Engineer conversations obviously were awesome to be a part of. And again, I am jealous that I wasn't able to hear more and audit more and be a part of that cohort. But hearing the journeys of leadership, hearing the journeys of introspection, creativity, inflection points, and how all of that kind of compounds into somebody's personal mission statement, personal leadership statement. And then moving forward, how do you have a voice, and how do you have an influential voice, and then how do you turn that into a voice where people can lead with that voice, and by very general sense of definition, people follow that. People want to go toward that. They're attracted to that in a way that says, this is um, something that I believe in, something that I want to stand beside. And then moving forward, how do you conjure more of those leaders to have now a group or a pack of leaders that all work together?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, all that is so good. It's so interesting, and I would like to dig in a little bit just to hear more about you and your background. So you played football in Missouri, and what was your I don't I think I remember, but I don't want to say for sure. What were you what position did you play?
Receiver. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wide receiver.
And then from there, you went on to graduate school there, and you were involved in administration, right?
Yeah,
Take me through a little bit of the story of
sure.
your kind of progression of where you're at to where you're at now.
Sure. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention I'm a proud Texan. Grew up in the great state. So yeah, I got recruited out of Arlington High School to go to Missouri as a student athlete. I get there, I have a great time. Honestly, was fairly familiar with school. I did enough to get by. I wouldn't say that. I probably had like a B average. Wasn't great. Wasn't all that bad either. So did that, but had a great time playing football. And about that time, we got good. We did our thing and went to some bowl games. And I had a sniff at the NFL for a little while. I actually ended up on some teams as a free agent. But then after that, you're sitting here waiting for a call to get back on the football field. In the meantime, I was like, I got to get off the couch, man. I'm watching Maury every day, and doing nothing but like running in the morning and then just sitting all day. So I decided to get back into the classroom. So there in Arlington, Texas, I jumped back into a classroom as a substitute teacher, which turned into a long-term sub within a couple of weeks, and then just fell in love with education.
Hmm.
At the same time, I'm having conversations with my athletic director that I had just left at Missouri about starting a program, particularly in student services. So we had all these resources for the competition. So coaches and weight room and training table and uh, medicine, sports medicine, all that, even sports psychology. And then you have all these resources for academics. You got your study halls and advisors and all these things that help promote the academic. And our third core value was social responsibility. And I'm scratching my head and I'm like, all right, where are all the resources? And we had like a 1.5 person shop in what was deemed life skills at the time. and they would give the occasional workshop. And we were like, hey man, this isn't really working, because we're having a lot of issues with a lot of different student athletes just running into life things that we're not learning about. And we didn't learn about it where we were from. You picked a kid up from Arlington, Texas, and dropped him in the middle of Missouri, and then said, go, and just expected us to do so. Well, all of the adults, all of the mentors in their life have a specific purpose. So the trainer isn't going to teach you how to pay your rent on time, and your coach isn't going to teach you how to be a decent person in the grocery store. I mean, they'll tell you that. Or your academic advisor isn't gonna coach you up on how to be a good neighbor, or a good steward of your financial stipend that you get every month. So I was like, hey, a lot of these pieces, just these development pieces, are missing. So I started a program. I made them give me a class. As a grad assistant, I mean, I'm 21, I'm removed. I played with some of the guys that were in my class. So it was incredible to kind of walk through that journey as teaching that class as a grad assistant. I was also a part of that management team. So as I mentioned to you, we had the athletic director, and then like the top 25 people all the way down to me as like this grad assistant. We met every week, sometimes more than once a week, and we talked about the business from top to bottom: tickets, parking, coach searches, NCAA violations, TV deals. We switched conferences while I was there. A number, construction. We built a whole new addition to the football stadium, put new speakers and scoreboards and all that. And then all of a sudden you got to my camp. I'm like, hey, and by the way, we're building something really cool in the student athlete development area and arena. And I think I mentioned to you all, I was keeping spreadsheets like back on Excel, back before all of these like management systems were available to me. I mean, I was keeping spreadsheets on students and intaking through Excel, and literally trying to share sheets around to their coaches and their administrators and things like that. So it's way bigger and better now. That, shout out to, it's called Mizzou Made right now. A huge camp, very well put together and successful. But a lot of those evolutions, a lot of that learning, happened there. And a lot of my leadership qualities come from a guy named Mike Alden, that was the athletic director. Fast forward, I meet a young lady who imports me to Omaha. We're here, we're settled, have a couple kids. I jump into a place called Avenue Scholars Foundation, which helps young students that have been deemed, coming from inopportune circumstances, maybe challenged a little bit academically, challenged a little bit in discipline areas, but we essentially go and we target them to be a part of our program. And we ensure that they get through high school, that they get into community college. And then the final check is that we place them into what we deem a career. So it's not necessarily a part-time job somewhere. We want to get them into a full-time place and have them independently living, but then have that person standing alongside them, teaching them how to be a good neighbor, how to be a good steward, how to be a good driver, how to get out of your legal issues, all of those things that, I was coming off of. I had it all built in. I had been doing that case management since, 4 or 5 years prior. I've spent about 5.5 years there, ended up as a team lead over about, 15 other case managers. We probably saw 400, 500 kids a year, and just had this running tally of Omaha youth, run. I still have some. I'm happy to say, I was going to say embarrassed. I'm happy to say I still talk to, kids. He just had his 28th birthday the other day. We're still checking in with each other. So transitioned to United Way, where I oversaw the education and financial stability portfolios, which combined is about a $4 million pot, which turned around and benefits Omaha local programs that do exactly that. They promote education for youth and adults. They promote job readiness, career readiness, job placement, career placement, and a number of other mentoring before and after school type things. Again, in the same vein of having that person, that leader and mentor in the place, and creating those outcomes for those program participants. And then about that time, when I was at United Way, actually at the very start of United Way, I ran for a public office for something called Learning Community Coordinating Council. Had no idea what it was, but it goes all the way back down to the early childhood segment. So really what Learning Community tries to do is capture the early learner, we say birth to about age 8 or grade 3, and their caregiver. So a lot of times it's two generations, maybe even 3 generations, but most notably it's known as the 2-gen approach to education. So we want to engage the caregiver. A lot of times it's the mom and or dad, into educational and life skills and personal development programs, as well as promote the development and early onset executive functioning and all of those skills that a young child needs to have to get a great start even into kindergarten. So now I get to be the CEO and work with awesome people, awesome school districts on awesome initiatives that, again, hammer down a mentor, a leader from our side, that walks and talks with families in a liaison and navigator type role. And then our ultimate goal is to equalize or make more opportune different things and different lessons and different educational experiences for families that may be coming from less opportune situations. It was a very long answer to an
That's
easy
great.
question, but hopefully that
Yeah.
ran a little bit.
Yeah. So you seem to have either sought out or been sought out to provide guidance, leadership around this idea of mentoring and education and life skills. Why do you suppose that is?
It comes from my upbringing, honestly. I don't know if I shared with you or not. I'm a child of an incarcerated father. So when I was 7, my dad went away, and he didn't get out till I was 31. So I missed that particular piece, but at the same time, I had a lot of coaches and a lot of key mentor, like big brothers and sisters. I had a lot of key mentors that kind of pieced my timeline together, all of like my timeline of life. I had individuals come in, and some are still here, that have fortified me. They're all put, this person has their hands here, that person has their hands here,
Mm,
that person has their, and they're all lifting me and edifying me in that way. And I feel like it's only right. It is my duty and my calling to be that set of hands and that set of support for as many people as I can, because I know that I know how badly I wanted it, and obviously how much I benefited from it too, how much I continue to benefit from those that uplifted me. So it's kind of how I rock. It's in my blood to seek out those things, and then just like you said, if I'm called upon, I usually say yes.
mm, mm. Yeah, it sounds like a calling. Hmm. So let's go back to football for a minute. What do you bring with you from football? Your experience success, with training, with all the things that really informs the way that you work with people now.
Sure. Very, very simply, it's 3 main categories, and it's kind of a before, during, and after. The before is all the preparation that you need. So studying your task ahead, studying your roster, maybe studying the opponent, whatever it is you're trying to execute. You want to know all the details about that entity or those people, and then running it through in your mind beforehand. A lot of times the games, the competitions that you see on TV, the game has already been won because it was won in the preparation. Like, I know what you're about to do. I'm going to do this, which is going to force you to do this, and then I have the answer after that. The next big piece is during. We all know that best laid plans often don't come to fruition, or sometimes I guess don't come to fruition. But the ability to react to adversity on site, that is some of the I think that is the biggest separator between people that I run into nowadays, is that when adversity hits, it's truly, I think it's truly interesting and amazing how people choose to react on site, like in the heat of the moment. Are you going to get emotional and irrational and fly off, or are you going to shut down and become ineffective, or what? How do you react? Can you still stay in the moment and remain your focus and add this new adverse piece into your formulation and try to find a way to pivot and continue to go, like, or at what point do you, or you're injured in some kind of way, or you're disabled in some kind of way, like how do you then still try to fight and compete or complete the pieces that you can? That's what athletics really instilled with me, is that during, you have to remain engaged. If at one point you start losing, if at one point you're at a disadvantage, it doesn't mean that the game is over. There's plenty of time, there's plenty of circumstance left. And if you believe and you have faith, again, from your past experiences, from that study that you do, that during, you'll still be able to be victorious. You can have the greatest comeback wins ever. Those are those storylines. Afterward, it's a reflection piece. And a lot of people don't have time or don't really value the reflection piece nowadays. Sit and think about what you just did. Have you sat and thought about what just happened to you in the last 2 years? All the twists and turns that you've taken, you as a parent or a spouse or a team member or a person of faith or a community member, or what has happened to your hobbies? Have you gained new hobbies? Things like that. Have you sat and thought about that? Have you sat and thought about the last project that you completed at work, or the last project you didn't complete at work? Have you really sat and thought about the last argument you had with your partner? Where could I have done better? Was I right? Did I have to prove that I was right? All of these things go through your mind, but you have to think about those things in real time to then what? Feed right back into your preparation for the next time you come up. You have to know where your skills, your strengths, where your weaknesses, where your modifications are, so that when the next argument or project or whatever, life experience comes up, how can you be reflective and use some of that faith and some of that understanding and bring it right up front? Try to piece just a little bit of competitive advantage up, so that when you get in there, you're less risk averse or less vulnerable in some of those positions to act maybe out of your character.
Mm. All really good points that you're making here. And, when you were talking about how you handle the adversity in the moment, I was wondering if you have a story of that you could help us, like, put us into the story, whether it be football or not, but a moment in time where you really had to find that within yourself.
Yeah, I'll tell the most recent one. It was actually with my oldest son. One of these days, I think he had a day off of school, like a teacher in service day or something like that. So I keep him and his little brother together, and I'm like, I got to get them out of the house because they're using this place like a jungle gym. So I need to take them to one of those like little PE 101 kids gym places. So they're running, they're jumping. I got about a 90-minute window before this place closes. Just go. I'm sitting in the corner enjoying some fresh air, some downtime, and they're playing. Well, my oldest comes running up to me toward the end, and he's sweating, just drenched. He's got a short sleeve and some long pants on. So I'm like, he's not overheated. I mean, it's air conditioned inside. So I'm like, hey, sit down and take some water. He sits down, he takes water. I take his brother to the restroom because we're getting ready to go. I come back out, and my oldest is coming toward me, and he's kind of wobbly. And I'm like, oh, maybe he's just tired and spent. And he says that his stomach hurts. I say, go sit back down, drink your water. Like, we're almost done. We're coming out of the restroom. He's coming toward me again. And now his body's convulsing and he's sick. So I'm like, man, did he get hit in his stomach? Did he hit in his head? Is he dizzy? Maybe he ate too much breakfast. So he goes in. Unfortunately, he expels. But I'm like, okay, he's cool. Maybe he just, again, he's doing too many flips and tumbles, and his body just got crazy. But as he's doing that, toward the end, he's standing there, and I get him to sip some water and clean out the rest of what he's got. But he looks at me, and he's like, Daddy, and then he says, where are you, Daddy? He's like, I can't see you anymore. So I
Mm.
run up on him and I grab two of his shoulders and I'm like, oh, what? And again, he's wobbling. I'm like, hey, and you see him and his face is turning pale. His lips have no color by now. And I'm like, no, are you playing? Is this a joke? He's like, no, no, where did you go? So luckily I got him sat down against the edge of the bathroom stall essentially. And by about halfway down, his body goes lifeless. I mean, just limp dead weight. Now, for all parents out there, for all caregivers out there, can you imagine the on-time feeling of that? So now he's 6. I got a 4-year-old also in the bathroom. It's not my familiar territory. And on site, you have to start taking notes of his eyes rolled back in his head. He told me he couldn't see me. He's very hot. So do I need to strip him down? Do I need to get do I need to cool him off somehow? Do I need to get buckets of water or something? And now his body is limp. He's lifeless. He is like almost like fainted and passed out. But I have him up, and then all of these things start coming into my mind. Okay, keep him awake, keep his head up so he doesn't somehow choke, like open his mouth, make sure he's not choking on his tongue type thing. But I knew he was sitting up, so that probably wasn't it. So all of these things start chopping in right in real time. And my body heat's going up, my heart rate's going up. The little brother's asking, wow, what's going on? He's watching this whole thing and kind of have that secondary trauma type thing. So with one hand, I'm keeping his head and his body up, propped again, a dead weight, propped. I'm kind of like a full grip up against the wall. I'm finding a cell phone to be able to be like, hey, 911 right now. I get on the phone, check this. I get on the phone. I'm like, hey, I'm at like wherever the cross street was. I was like, hey, I'm roughly at this cross street. They're like, yeah, but do you have the actual address? I was like, let me look it up for you real quick. So yeah, I like got on a map, I got on a Google map and looked up the exact address, had to give the exact timeline, the exact symptoms in real time while talking to him, doing one of these, trying to keep his face alert, trying to keep his, hey, look at me. Even if you can't see me, keep talking to me. Tell me what's going on. Do you feel hot? Do you feel all of these things, all of those chops, and then that wait. It was the longest, probably 2.5, 3 minute wait for the wonderful folks, the wonderful EMT and EMS people to get there. But that wait of what's about to happen to this dude, what's going on underneath. Can I keep calm now? Should I start reacting the way that I want to react? Should I try to shield my youngest away from this? And again, I was solo in there, and luckily we had the bathroom to ourselves. But basically had to go flag down the person who was working to say, hey, I'm sorry about all of this. We will be out of here soon, but can you go and post yourself at the door and tell them where we are? This is what just happened. So all of that, just reliving all of that in real time and trying to manage all of that in real time and keep this focus, keep this like continual, I guess, like view and outlook that like we will get to the next step. And when you get to the next step, you better be ready because it counts right now. Everything that you say, everything that you share has to count. So long story short, it sounded like some heat exertion stuff. It sounded like he just did too much. I mean, his color came back a little bit. We had to get some food in him, get some energy. We watched him the rest of the day, replaced his hydration. But it was a very scary feeling right there on site to say, you have a decision. Are you going to break down too? Are you going to get emotional? Are you going to start yelling and crying? Are you going to say, I can't handle this, I want somebody else to come in here? But those things kind of kick into you and say, right now in this heat, in this very critically important, critically uh, uh, like crucial type time, how do you react? How do you show up? What do you bring to the table? What kind of training and foundation do you have that shows you can remain in the spot and focused, and then have your reaction afterward? Try to forego your emotions and your release afterward, which happened to me while we were having lunch. About 30 minutes later, I was sitting there. We raced to the nearest grocery store and got in like the hotline from the buffet line and tried to force food down his throat. And I'm sitting there like, I'm trembling, trying to be like, yeah, are you good? Are you, every bite, every chew, every blink of his eye, I'm trying to capture. And I had the whole, it hit me about 30 minutes later. So
those moments of crisis, I'm sure that you have seen it happen a lot, and you've probably worked with quite a few people who have been in these moments of crisis, and then they have to figure out how to pick up and keep moving on. I think of the people that work with the learning community, the people that you're working with there. Can you tell us about? I'm kind of wondering about how they're doing after the last couple of years. Like trying to reach people after they've been through a lot and connecting with them and kind of re-engaging. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's like?
Yeah, it's been challenging. I wish I could paint a better picture for you, but the challenge comes in the form of a lot of different things. Apathy, as far as being back together in big groups. Um, I would say really the value on what education can do for somebody at this point in time. A lot of priorities are just still, I would say still, they were before and they are now. It's a lot of like survival and maintenance type stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm working to survive and working to maintain, I can't necessarily add that next block of getting ahead or improving circumstance or have some kind of knowledge gain. I'm not really interested in that. So it's getting to and from school, getting sick family members to and from care, getting the groceries that you need for that week or maybe even for that half a week. um, Understanding what's going on in your kid's life enough to try to advocate for them at the school or deal with discipline issues or maybe their own legal issues. I mean, a lot of those very basic things are going on right now. And to your point, another person from the outside just looks like somebody coming in trying to save them or somebody coming in trying to force them down this path that maybe they're not ready to. But that's where the power relationships comes in, and our team is built of those who understand that, but then also great relationship builders and maintainers. So we do a lot of home visiting, so it's not come to the center and fill out intakes and feel like you're at a doctor's office. I want to come meet you where you're at. I want to see what your home looks like. Even though I'm here for you and the 4-year-old, I see that you have a 7 or a 12 or a high schooler. Like, hey, how are you doing in school? Or what do you like to do for fun? Things like that, where you engage the entire family. Those have proven beneficial. But, honestly, it's hard. Anywhere from like ESL to GED classes, they're not as populous. And then a lot of the other classes, as far as like financial stability, um, even education classes, we have a segment where we try to develop more early childhood educators. All of these class numbers are down. All of them are trending down. Um, and it's a lot more nuanced classes now about social, emotional health, mental organization, things like that. So we've switched, and I don't think we're alone in this. A lot of public school, and I would even imagine private school, a lot of public school has switched to being that mentor, being that person that stops the press and say, how are you doing? Like, move all of it out of the way. How are you doing? Can I meet you somewhere where you're at right now? I'm struggling with this, or I'm scared about this, or I'm anxious about this, or I'm happy about this. Can I meet you there and try to elevate your your sentiment so that you continue to be successful now? And if we can stretch that short term to like a midterm, and that midterm to a long term, if we can stretch that happiness or that healthiness for that long, now it's not A+, but if we can stretch that like B+ or that B for long, like let's see it, and then pretty soon you get comfortable with B or B+, and you're like, hey, let's go get that A+ now, hey, let's get that A- now. How can we continue to upgrade, literally upgrade, step up, things in your life that make you feel comfortable, make you feel happy and healthy.
Mm, love that, meeting people where they're at, not coming in to just save them. That reminds me of this concept of agency, personal agency, believing that what I do and say actually will make a difference for myself. Um, do you find that people are struggling because they do feel hopeless, or like that they it doesn't really matter if I do this or that because it's not going to make any difference anyway. Are you hearing things like that as well?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm,
And that's not new. Unfortunately, that's not new either.
yeah.
That happened before. A lot of societal factors go into that. And there are many inequities that we could spend another 4, 5, 6, 8 hours talking about how certain community members, live, in some ways are forced to live. But a number of those factors go into the holistic health of a family, of a unit trying to navigate through our community and any other community. So we try to get to that. And again, we can't necessarily fix the big things. We learning community can't fix the big things. And then me, Brad, as your friend or your like community champion, I can do what I can to help some of them, but there's not enough service or provision from us to be able to tend to all of the needs that a family may have. So we try to support the ones that we can and inject hope into those, and to try to empower them to know that they can too, advocate for themselves to try to rectify or curb the agony, in some ways. But this is it's a generational approach. We're trying to do as much as we can for the caregivers and have the children grow up in the best possible case scenario, so that when they become caregivers, they can also strive for their children to not only have what they had, but then you want your children to have better than what you had, so.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, structure still matters. Individual choice certainly matters, but so does the structure around us.
Without question.
I'm assuming that you guys do some training of folks who are helping others. So, how do you help or advise, or how do you even do this for yourself? Just the being able to, I guess, the internal capacity to be able to handle these struggles that, you're encountering on a daily basis.
It's interesting you said that. We just talked about it this week. I mean, literally yesterday, about how some of our staff and some of the teachers that we work with,
Yeah.
how we can involve them as program participants in some of these things. And one of the main classes, I think it's a national model, it's called Circles of Security, but basically diving deep into how you feel secure. What are the things that are foundationally set in your life? What are those that you are absolutely assured about of yourself? And then those that you're not. So then, if you can localize somewhere where you know that you're struggling, and then ask for assistance in a group that is safe and is effective, in assisting you. I think that's a powerful place to be. And yes, to your point, like we deal with that fatigue all the time, that caregiver fatigue, um, that agony and stress. I mean, I had a request last week. Somebody said, "Hey, look, I know we have the rest of the day on Zoom, but I need a mental health stop. I need a hard stop right now. Can I take the rest of the day?" Absolutely, absolutely. Say no more. Like I have been there. I've also been there and tried to power through the rest of the day and done more damage. It's not it. It's not it. So a lot of what we've done is tried to take that quote unquote professional development, and I'm turning into like more of a personal development, trying to meet the individual where they're at. What do you need right now? How can I see you in the space that you are right now? And if this is overwhelming, let's stop, talk about it, because I need you. Not only do I need you at your best, but the families that we stand alongside, need you at your best too. And if you're not, don't run yourself down. That's the last thing we want you to do, is run yourself down, because then we lose you, and we may you what you bring, your gifts and talents, but we also may lose you in the long run. And now we're short staffed, and that's just going to pull on everybody else to try to take
Hmm.
on your caseload, while we try to attempt to find a replacement. So it really is I would say case management, but it's a very individualized approach to how can we also care for the caregivers. Where is that at? Who is talking about that? who has programs for that. And like you say, we're trying to fold everybody into it.
Mm. Yeah. Do you have any go-tos for yourself? How you stay present?
I pray a lot. Um, I take my mental health breaks too. If there's 30 minutes in between Zooms or an hour, or even 2 hours, if I get lucky, I'll go outside. People always clown me. Feel free to clown me. There's a local Goodwill here, and I go to Goodwill and just do laps. I just walk. I people watch. I listen to random conversations. I look at the random trinkets. I imagine who had it. What was it? An 85-year-old person? Oh, that was a 7-year-old toy. Oh, that one looked like it really got rained on. Oh, that, and I just make up these stories and I go to like this different place in my mind and I cleanse. I get like slices of life from literally all over the country. You find stuff that like, who went to Tijuana and brought this back? And why is it in Omaha, Nebraska? And I imagine and I create these whole storylines. Again, feel free to clown, but it works for me. I'm out of the regular setting. I'm getting some steps in. My creative juices are flowing. I'm interacting with people. The people in there know this guy's back again. That kind of thing. Um, that's number one. Obviously, hanging out with friends and family is great. My boys keep me busy. I just got my garden. Mother's Day came and gone. I just got my garden planted, so I'll spend a lot of time out there, just talking to the nature out there. And then I have mentors too. In the theme of all of this, like I have leaders and mentors that I know I can call and say, "Hey, look, I called one last week. It's right on time too. I called my favorite one last week, and I said, "Hey, look, this is kind of how we talk. You'll catch it." I said, I don't need a sippy cup today. I don't need that baby bottle. I said, I need fish and bread today. I need a big word. I need one that's going to fill me today because I'm at this point where I feel like nothing else will do. I need the big fat word right now. Like I'm ready to eat a lot because I feel like I'm running on zero right now. I called him up. We had a 20-minute conversation. I left out of there. I was like, brand new person, brand new mindset. My head literally did like this, my shoulders literally did like this, and was like, all right, let's do it. I'm not decrepit anymore. I'm not running like this anymore. I'm able to see clearer, think clearer, and have that advice, have that injection. So that's just a few that come to mind right now.
Yeah, that's good. I think a lot of times leaders feel like they shouldn't need from others. And your whole theme of what you're saying is just how interconnected we are and how we can lift one another up. Um, do you ever feel like you can't, like you don't, like I shouldn't ask, or why am I struggling with this? That sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I tie that closely to my imposter syndrome too. Me as a Black male in education, PhD in the Midwest, also not from here. Like I feel like I'm out of place when I show up to places, and I feel like I have to overcome that before I even get there. And then when I
Oh, I'm
sit
so
down,
curious how you overcome it, by the way.
I go to a different place in my mind. I
Yeah.
I go all the way back to that first meeting that I had at the University of Missouri, where I sat in that big room where I really wasn't supposed to be, where I was this 21-year-old snotty nosed kid, and a room full of executive professionals. And I learned in a hurry that if you have a seat at the table, it is a very valuable seat. So show up with your gifts and your talents. If and when you're called on, like the Socratic method, when you're called on, you better have the right answer. You better have something creative and innovative to put on the table, because if not, you might not get called on again. Or the answer that you give is not necessarily going to be the one that puts you in the next conversation. So whether you know it or not, the other 24 people around the table are looking at you and watching how you move and watching how you act, even when you're not being talked to. Are you taking notes? Are you looking people in the eye? Are you being attentive? Are you thinking? Are you working on the progression? That's how I walk into meetings now. knowing that I have things that I need to check off. So I need to listen to what people are saying. I'm also taking notes about who the doers are in here and who are just the sayers. And then how can I, when I'm called on, put enough out there that says, I'm ready, I'm paying attention, I'm giving about what we're doing here, and I'm ready to rock. So a lot of it, I just say I'm there. Dr. Brad shows up. Brad can talk to you right here and now on this podcast, but Dr. Brad has to show up and be that person, because I know that other people are counting on me.
Hmm. So you use a bit of a persona, not necessarily fake, just like this is this person that needs, like this part of me needs to show up right now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
It sounds like a little bit of pressure. Do you ever feel like that's a lot of pressure?
Yeah, of course. Of course. And that's built in.
Yeah.
It's funny that and I'm like, yeah, duh. It's almost like a duh thing to me, but that's built. That's another thing that athletics teaches you too, is that this is a very pressure cook. I mean, you practice is pressure. Like you're not even at the game on whatever day, or Saturday morning or whatever. There's pressure at practice. There's ways that you can inject all of that so it just becomes normal to you. So when you get to the game should be the easiest part. So there's
Mm.
no pressure in the game. You don't have to, and the big catch, is he going to make it? Well, like you made it 12 times when you practiced, five different days this week, like you made the same catch. So you don't really have to. And same thing when you get to that meeting, like, that you've done your preparation, that you're there to answer these questions, you're there to that's built in. And that Dr. Brad character has to show up, and there's automatically going to be pressure. So I gotta be I'm not suited and booted today, but I gotta be suited and booted when I go, gotta be clean cut. I gotta be yes or no, sir, all of that kind of stuff. That's just part of the game. That's part of the prep that I have to take in there, knowing that this is a game day. This is a game day showing. And again, I want to have a great showing for myself. Number one, I look inside and compete with myself to have the best. And then that will lead to, hopefully will lead to further collaboration or partnership, or somebody saw you in a meeting like 3 years ago and thought you had something great to say, and now all of a sudden they're sitting across from you in like an interview panel or something. Like you're able to do that and plant those seeds, and people will know you because of that. People will know that that's the standard in which you hold yourself to, which again is what athletics teaches you. If you don't have a standard of excelling or excellence, you're going to be ordinary. I always try to like, if you just do the ordinary things that somebody told you to do, go to practice, lift your weights, do your stretches, maybe do your study hall, like that's that everybody in the country is doing that. Any sport, any competition, if you just stay at the ordinary level, every single person is doing what you're doing. And then when you're challenged to do something extra, now you're at this level. And if you continue to do that, like you'll always be above, or more competitive, or more attentive, or more in tune than the ordinary level. You are literally extraordinary. You're literally on a path to get extraordinarily better than the competition or the average. So it's really a fight to not regress to the mean, stay away from that, but to hold yourself to an example. An example or standard, an excellence standard that says, I'm going to show up and I'm going to have, what happens if I have an excellent showing today? Can I cook that up in the next hour? Can I have an excellent showing in here? If so, let's go get it. Why not?
Hmm. A lot of the things that you've said today kind of give us an indication of what you value. Do you have a set of personal values that you've really thought through, or do you just know internally that there's just a few things that you just really care about and these kind of help guide you?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'd like to put more thought into it, but yeah, a lot of it, like I said, a lot of it is guided by my faith. Family, responsibility is huge for me. I'm the oldest of, I was the man of the house. I was the first one to leave my family in Texas and move 650 miles away to to Missouri as a 17-year-old. I've always felt, I wouldn't say that pressure, but that expectation to go and trailblaze. So for me, the creative, innovative, teamwork, collaborative type thing is really built into me. Also the value of I'll very specifically say the value of a father to a kid's life. That kind of blends into being a mentor, but specifically the father figure to somebody else. That's a big one for me too. Yeah, I'll kind of leave it right there. Nothing else is coming to my mind right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I mean, it's very rare that we can just whip them out because they're such a part of who we are, as far as values go and being able to articulate them. It's not always easy. So last time we talked, there was an image that you had in your mind that you felt like you needed to share with the audience. Would you be willing to share that real quick before we go?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it was the craziest thing. I mean, as you'll hear, it almost seems elementary, but this image and this story and this like metaphor kept coming to my mind. I can see it so clearly in my mind. And again, in my morning prayer and in preparation for our time together, I was like, why is this thing still on my mind? Anyway, I heard a story a long time ago, and maybe I made it up, maybe I didn't, but it works. Um, I heard that in the old like Barnum and Bailey circus system, when they would get new elephants in to come and like train and try to be a part of the show, they would bring them in as babies. Obviously, they want to train them up and get them going. And you need babies as a part of the show too. Baby elephants, which are obviously massive, these big. But these elephants would be in there and they're young, they're like 1-2-year-old, they're like toddler elephants. I don't know if you can put toddler qualities onto an elephant, but they're curious and they get into things and they roam around and they're out of line and they play with the water instead of putting the water where it needs to be. And they kick the ball and they want to have fun, right? But when there was a place on stage or a place in their environment that they weren't supposed to go, what I heard was they have these big, heavy metal clink chain link ropes and tethers. So there would be this one foundational post and this link, and then this shackle around one of their legs. And so you can imagine the baby wants to go off and play and it would be clang, so not only the weight, but the restriction, the sound of that loud clang. And then eventually the frustration would lead to an acceptance of this is my radius. This is how far I can go on this. And I know that right here are the safe places that my caregivers want me to stay within. And if I go outside of it, it's just not that, that's not an option for me. I just can't do it. So that clang, that budding and budding and budding. And then eventually, what do you think the elephant did? It didn't try it anymore. It knows exactly what will happen when that weight gets there and that pressure gets all the way there. And they try to break through that invisible or visible barrier. You can't do it anymore. You can't do it. Now, what happens is the rest of the story is as that elephant grows and grows and grows, well, they need that heavy chain link for the babies that come in behind them. So they don't just have like hundreds of chain heavy, what they can use on the older ones, the more powerful, the huge mastodon looking elephants, all they had to use on them was a silly piece of rope. Not as strong, not as durable, not as loud, but the feeling and sensation of that shackle, of that restriction around that foot, when it got to a certain point, and that grown person, that grown adult elephant felt that tug, it knew and was reminded, perhaps of that trauma that is stored within their senses, that they can't go that way. They'll never be able to go that way. And it's not nice. It's not safe. It's not acceptable. They may even get disciplined if they try to break and go further. So all it took was a simple rope by then, which in all of our minds, it would take 10 ropes, and I bet the elephant could still topple down anything with just a simple rope. But all it took was one rope, because by the time that elephant got there, it had been trained and trained and trained and solidified and cemented within their senses that that is the barrier, that is where they can go and no mas, you know? So I think what we talked about with the Corps of Engineer group was, how can we think about leadership in a different way than that? Because I've been in systems where that has been the leadership style. That has been the program, essentially. Like, you better get with the program or the circus will leave you. Like, hate to play off that, but you will get left. You know, you're not built for this place. If you want to be here, this is how you'll do it. So I challenged the group, and myself, honestly, I challenged the group to think about different ways. And what I did was I marked out that chain. I marked out that rope and said, what would happen if younger employees, younger leaders came into a set where the older employees, the older leaders of the group said, hey, real quick, go on over there. It'll probably hurt you. You're going to get in trouble. But as you can see, us older, wiser, more tenured leaders, or elephants, you know, as a part of this herd, kind of hang here. Like, we know in our minds kind of where the danger spots are, where the safe spots are. We're here. Come and almost have this like herd type of mentality, and say, you know, and to where this ruler with this whip and all that doesn't have to come down and discipline you all the time and slap you and pound your hand and chain you up like that, and like curb all of this creativity or innovation that you might have. What happens if the older, more wise and developed team members know that you, as a younger, maybe less experienced or less familiar team member, come in? How can you expect or set up as a program a community where that herd naturally has that cohesion, naturally knows that the dynamic in those herds are, you know, the olders carry all the wisdom and all the know-how and all of this twists and turns through the cycles. This summer is going to be hard. The winter's going to be cool. We know we got to get to water by the end of the rain season, or else, you know, that kind of thing. Like, why are we not paying attention more to those type of lessons in nature? And why do we err more on this power and control? So I challenged myself a lot with that. I challenged the group of Corps of Engineers to try to reimagine that. I had a follow-up question there, and they were like, well, what if the next big greatest thing is right outside of the reach? I said, yeah, all the more. You know, have that young or that medium or that old one go outside of the boundary, check it out. If it hurts you, come back and tell everybody else that it hurts you. If you find some gold over there, you find a new and creative way or a system improvement, and go let them know, and then help move the herd that way too. You don't have to stay stable. I think that's another one of the things is we don't live in a circus tent. You know, we have boundary. We don't necessarily have the boundary of space in our minds. We can have creation, we can have innovation, but let's do it together. You know, let's have it. You need everybody in the herd. You need their wisdom with you. You can't go over there by yourself and set up a whole camp. You don't have the herd with you. You don't have all the perspectives with you. You don't have that inclusion of the entire team with you to be able to thrive over there. Even if 2 or 3 of you go, you're still missing the other 12 of your team members. You know, you need everybody to go and explore it together so that you can go over there and thrive together, just as you did when you were, you know, supposedly tethered to, you know, your 10-foot radius. If you want to expand it to 20, go get it, but make sure that it's safe for everybody. And all of that is maintained. All of that is again, studied ahead of time. You know how to react to adversities or triumphs when you get there. And then that piece of turning around and giving it back to people behind you.
Mm. So good. So one of the things that comes to my mind when you're talking about that is how hard it is to realize that you've got just a rope around your leg.
Yeah.
When you're older and you've you're kind of set in your ways, it's hard to realize that you don't actually have to stay where you're at. There is something else, you have more choice, you have more agency again, to be able to move than you realize. But that is also one of the values of bringing somebody new in,
Mhm.
bringing in other perspectives, bringing in somebody that is younger who doesn't feel the feel tethered like you do, and to not tether them. That's another good reason to not tether them, because hey, who knows what they could, show us too. So it's that idea of being able to learn from each other too, just is really powerful there.
Yeah, I'm interested. It sounds like you have maybe some personal connection or testimony toward an example of that. Do you have one that you could share with us?
Mm. Hmm.
Maybe not you personally, but one that you know of.
Yeah. Well, gosh, no, that makes me have to think. This is
Okay.
not my interview. This is your interview.
Okay. All right. Well, I saw you light up, and I saw you
Yeah.
have
I mean, my
maybe
kids. That's the easiest. It's the easiest thing is to just realize that when I haven't tethered them, when I've realized, oh my gosh, why am I making this a rule? This is not important. This doesn't matter. And then when I kind of let them go and realize, oh, maybe I don't have to live by that either. Maybe I could be a little more free. Maybe I don't have to worry so much about making sure everybody is happy. Because why am I making my kid worry about all of their friends and whether or not they're happy? Just because I always did that doesn't mean that they need to do that.
Yeah.
Making other people happy. Maybe that's not our ultimate, thing that we have to do. Maybe there's something a little more nuanced than that. So I think that in particular for me is an area of growth recently, is that in particular. Yeah. Not like I don't have to carry the responsibility of making everybody else around me happy. And it's a hard thing to do as a mom, to let that one go.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Powerful.
thanks
Well,
for the
thank you.
question.
No, without question, thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of parents struggle with the same things. We want to have that better environment, or better, or more suitable, but you catch yourself being like, wait a second, why? That's a good question. Why is it like this? Why am I? Is it because you were raised like that, or you're overcorrecting from something else, or that's just how you feel in the heat of the moment? I think, again, some of that reflection point. Many a night I lay in bed, I'm like, ooh, I didn't do that one right. I didn't do that right. And then tomorrow I wake up, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do it better tomorrow. But tomorrow I overcorrected. And then I lay in bed that night, and I'm like, gosh, I still didn't get it right. Like, okay, go back the other way. And it's that balance, and you have to have that, I think, that authenticity with them too. And I've learned to, I'm, like I said, a 6 and 4, and almost 7 and 5. There are many times I had to, get down on a knee, look at both of them in the eye, and say, you know what I just did, it's not right. It's
Yeah.
unacceptable. I'm sorry. I don't want to do that again. Can you forgive me? I'm going to learn from this. I promise you that I won't. I mean, and it's getting to a space to where, like, hey, we're in this together. We're trying together. I haven't been a dad of a 7 and 5-year-old at the same time in my life. So I'm trying just as much as you all are trying to listen to me. I'm trying to listen to you. So
Really good.
yeah.
Okay, two more things. Where can people find you? And then my final question is about your final advice for somebody who wants to be a voice of influence. So, where can people find you or connect with you or learn more about the learning community?
Sure. I'm most specifically on LinkedIn, and it's just my name. It's a really long name, Brad Ekwerekwu. Um, I do a lot of work there. And then our website, Learning Community DS for Douglas and Sarpy, learningcommunityds.org is our website. Tons of information there. We have a monthly council meeting, Learning Community Council meeting. It's usually like the third Thursday of every month. So I'm always on site at our North Omaha campus. The leadership voice of influence, I think it's, I mean, again, it's circled around what we've talked about so far. The three big guiding principles that I think about when I think about something hard are awareness, education, and activation. Anything that you go into, how can you become more aware? How can you study up? Your kid is sick. You don't do this right. You're having an issue with your spouse, your partner. You have an issue at work. How can you become more aware of all the details of the what? And then you educate yourself. What are these terms? What can I learn more about? Do I really have all the facts in the right order, in the right place? And then what is the best way to activate? How can I go and do and see and either improve or correct or overcorrect, or in whatever way? How can I activate in a way that shows that I'm going to move from this place where I know it was uncomfortable? So all of that being said, you have a voice, you have God-given talents and gifts. Like it's a tragedy to what's that, you would know it, this little light of mine. You got to come underneath from, you cannot hide it under a bushel. If people even know what a bushel is, you can't hide it. You got to come out and shine, whether you know it or not. People need your shine.
Hmm. Amen. All right. Thank you so much, Brad. It was great to visit with you again.
Absolutely, very appreciative. Awesome show. Can't wait to check you out in future episodes.